Hey, Canucks fans, with the Islanders out of the playoffs and the Florida Panthers moving on, we can now sort of close the loop on the draft pick that we got in return in the Bo Horvat trade from January. Also going to recap the weekend's crazy playoff action. So we remember back in January, Vancouver traded Bo Horvat to the New York Islanders, and in return, we received player Anthony Beauvillier. We received prospect and player Atu Ratu, and we received a conditional first round pick for this year's 2023 draft. Basically, if it was top 12 or higher, the Islanders would have a choice to retain that pick or still give it to us. And then if they retained it, then we would get their 2024 pick, no matter what, no matter how high, no matter how low. So we were kind of hoping actually that it would be a playoff. It was going to be a lottery pick this year, and then that Islanders would keep it. And then they suck even more this year, and then next year's pick would be even higher, and that would be ours. But we didn't even get to think about that for too long because 1 month later, the Canucks flipped that pick in the Filip Hronek trade. So from Detroit, we got Filip Hronek, the defenseman, played only 4 games, but was still recovering from a shoulder injury. I think he's going to be really good for the team. So I'm not worried about Filip Hronek at all. I think he's going to be awesome, actually. But we got Filip Hronek, and we got a fourth-round pick in this year's draft in 2023. But going the other way, we traded a second-round pick in this year's draft and the conditional first that we got from the Islanders. So all those conditions now move to the Islanders and Detroit. Well, that condition has kind of been set now because the Islanders lost, but the Panthers are moving on. So of the 16, obviously the 16 non-playoff teams, they're ranked 1 through 16, and then we know that the Canucks are 11th in that 16-team ranking, and the Canucks can still win the draft lottery, which actually happens a week from today. So let's not worry about the top 16. Then what they do is they put the 16 playoff teams in reverse order based on points. So Florida had the worst points, the least amount of points of the 16 playoff teams. So they're slotted in at number 17, and the Islanders had the second worst point. So they're slotted at number 18 all the way down, and then President's Trophy gets the 32nd overall pick because the last pick of the first round because they were the best team in the regular season. But it's not set by points. It's actually set by how long you last in the playoffs. And I'm not talking about the actual date because you can't be penalized by if your series goes first or last. I'm talking about in terms of how far you go per round, and then they use points as a tiebreaker. All the same, because Florida won their series against Boston yesterday, they are now considered a second round team. So you bump down to the worst of the teams that lost in the first round, and that's the Islanders. So the Islanders basically that draft pick that they had that went to Vancouver is now in Detroit. It was going to be 18th overall, but because Florida actually drops below them because they advance. So the Islanders, we know they had originally the pick that turns out to be 17th overall. So it's not in the top 12, so it's not protected. So we now know that the Detroit Red Wings get that pick, which is 17th overall in the first round. Add the Canucks pick that's going to them, which is going to be 43rd overall. So, and then I believe the Red Wings have their own pick in the first round, which is kind of before the lottery is like 8th or 9th. And then I saw they made 2 other trades. So I believe that the Detroit Red Wings have 5 picks in the first 2 rounds this year. And already they made some moves this season. They started to move up the standings a little bit, had a hot start, then kind of tailed off at the end, missing the playoffs. So, but Detroit has 5 picks in the first 2 rounds now, and 2 of them are compliments of the Vancouver Canucks. As for us, we only have now our own first round pick, so we don't have the one from the Islanders, and we just traded our second away. So I believe we only have 1 pick in the first 2 rounds, and then compare that to Detroit's 5. So the trade tree per se has been completed, except for the fact that we don't know who all these teams are picking this year with their draft pick. But now we know that for Bo Horvat going to the Islanders, we got Anthony Beauvillier, we got Atu Ratu, we got Filip Hronek, and a 4th. And basically the other way now, out our door is basically Horvat, obviously, and then a second round pick. A second round pick, basically, because that first round pick went from the Islanders to us, and then back out to Detroit. So we net out. That's really a net loss, even though you'd love to have it. So the true net loss from the Horvat trade now is that second round pick that went out, but we got a fourth round pick back, and of course Filip Hronek. So does that make sense? Anthony Beauvillier, Aatu Räty, Filip Hronek, and a fourth. And going the other way was Horvat and a second. So and I like Horvat. You guys know how much I like him as a player. Didn't do too much in the regular season. Did even less in the playoffs for the Islanders. So even like this, I know this is kind of weird on your screen. I think we might. It's too early to say, but especially if Räty pans out and we get another good year out of Beauvillier, and especially if Hronek's good, you could argue that we won. There's a good chance that we'll have won this trade when all is said and done. A quick word about the playoff action. I don't know what surprises you more: Toronto beating Tampa and all the Toronto mad, fan madness that came from that. I talked about that on my stream last night. I have no problem with the Toronto fans celebrating. It's been 19 years. Imagine the Canucks hadn't won a first round playoff series in 19 years, and not just the fact it's been 19 years, but the way that Toronto had been losing them. So I wasn't upset, and I was happy for many, not all, but many of the Toronto fans, especially the ones I know in person. So there's Toronto knocking out Tampa, and of course the two big ones yesterday. Florida knocking off Boston, the President's Trophy record-setting Boston Bruins. They're out. And then, of course, Seattle knocking off Colorado. So of those three, which one is the most shocking to you, or the one that intrigues you the most? Is it Toronto beating Tampa and exercising their playoff demons of 2 decades? Is it Florida knocking off the President's winning Boston Bruins? Or is it expansion Seattle knocking off the defending Stanley Cup champions Colorado Avalanche? So Canucks fans in particular, let's say you don't care about Toronto and Tampa, or at least it's number 3 on this little ranking. Kind of fascinating to know if you are more happy that Boston lost. Doesn't matter who beat them, but it was Florida. Are you more happy that Boston lost, or are you more upset that Seattle, a second-year team, is moving on to the second round and they just vanquished the defending Stanley Cup champions? And tell me, or maybe you're equally passionate about both. You're happy that Boston lost, but you're mad that Seattle won. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you don't care about Boston anymore and that you're indifferent. And maybe you're more focused on the fact that Seattle is making it already the second round. And as a further question to that, here's another thing I thought of, because I see a lot of this on Twitter today. Maybe you are jumping on the Seattle Kraken bandwagon. I'm not here to judge. I'm not going to. I don't think that's right. That's just me. For me, I gotta careful. I don't think that's right for me. But maybe you want to cheer for a team in the playoffs, and you're gonna hitch your wagon to the Seattle Kraken, and that's fine. But let me know. Let me know in the comments with respect to Seattle. Are you upset that they're getting this far already? Are you indifferent, or are you actually going to be cheering for them as the closest team now geographically? For me, I think if I have to pick one of the 8, now that my other 3 favorites, Colorado, Tampa, and Winnipeg, are all gone, I think I'm going to be cheering for the Oilers. I don't mind the Oilers. I'm okay with them. I dislike the Calgary Flames. I don't dislike the Oilers. An Oilers Rangers matchup would be really intriguing to me. Oh, Oilers Toronto would be really intriguing. But if I had to pick who I think New York wins tonight. They beat the Devils. Could be wrong. And then I think somehow New York's going to get through the rest of the East. So I'm going to go with Edmonton and the Rangers now as my revised Stanley Cup final. I had Colorado versus Boston, but obviously that's virtually impossible now. Well, Canucks fans, so there's a lot there. There's the Bo Horvat trade tree being kind of closed off, the trade loop being closed off. Now that we know the standings and the finish, there is the games from the weekend, and there's your thought on the Seattle Kraken. As a Canucks fan, would love to know your thoughts there as well. Tonight, I'll be doing Canucks After Dark with Parker, but I will not be doing my own live stream as I got to write a final exam for my master course. But then we'll see what happens for the rest of the week. Just stay tuned on this channel, and I'll kind of announce things daily on my community page. But in the meantime, I would love to know your thoughts on what I talked about today. Shout out to my sponsors: Vanity Experts Real Estate, Perform Transform, Personal Training, Weight Loss. Thank you, legendary Lucas Gates, legendary Justin Credible, legendary Carol Bovenlander, legendary Andrew Chang, Hall of Fame and franchise members as well. And thanks to all of you for always watching. Always appreciate you. Never take you for granted. On your way out, subscribe, like the video, leave a donation, become a member, upgrade your membership. And I'll see you tonight at 10 p.m. Canucks After Dark, Parker and me. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care of yourselves, and take care of each other. God bless, and go Canucks go.